Hey guys, Bruce Swearingen here with Advanced Wildlife Solutions and Forage Wildlife. Record Buck Beans is a new product we put out last year, and it's been incredible. It's a Roundup Ready Forage late grouping soybean that we've had tons of success with. And just like all our products, we try to find ways to make better products at a better price, and this is a perfect example of that. And our buddy Sam Ingram, which is a PhD in Ruminant Nutrition, came down and done some testing with us and looked at some of the results of these beans. So we got a video coming up on our YouTube that we want you to check out.
Yeah, Sam Ingram actually went to the University of Georgia from undergrad and master's in animal science, and finished up my PhD at NC State in animal science focused on ruminant nutrition. So really unique opportunity here to take my knowledge base in ruminant nutrition and then my passion for the outdoors and wildlife to do a little work with 4S. So with the Record Buck Beans, with that analysis, when you look at Forage Soybeans, which is what we have there, with those crude protein numbers look really good for that analysis, and that's what you should expect with a legume, which that Forage Soybean is a legume. It makes its own nitrogen, and that nitrogen is a direct relation to the crude protein, which is what you're seeing. And that all accumulates really right there in the leaves where that deer is going to be browsing and bringing those nutrients in. It will cover the mama and the bucks all throughout their production cycle. The second thing that stood out to me was the total digestible nutrients. So it's great to have high crude protein, but if that animal can't actually ingest enough of those plants, it doesn't really matter. With the Record Buck Beans, the TDN numbers look really good, so that means that animal can actually have enough intake to meet the needs of it nutrient requirement wise. When you're looking at your options for planning a food plot, when we're looking at the stores, what options we have, whether it just be your regular ag bean versus a forage type soybean, which is what we have with Record Buck Beans. You know, those two are bred totally differently. When you're looking at just your regular ag bean, when those guys that are developing that soybean plant, they are looking for yield and yield alone. When we develop a forage soybean, we have a couple of things in mind. We want to produce a lot of leaves because that's what the deer are interested in, and we want that bean to produce throughout the growing season. So we want it to not shut down and drop leaves and put on bean pods. I mean, that's a benefit to us, but what we really want to do is maximize leaves. So with Record Buck Beans, we have a forage soybean that is focused on putting on a lot of leaves for that animal to browse on for that animal all season long, compared to your run-of-the-mill ag bean. So one thing that causes some people confusion, and once you get your head wrapped around it, it makes sense, but with soybeans specifically, they have groupings. So the later the grouping, the longer that maturity is, the maturity timeline of that soybean plant is. So you have really low groupings that they'll get the maturity put on seed pods quick, and then we have later maturing, so like a group 8 soybean, which is what we have with Record Buck Beans, later maturing. So the reason why that's important in a case like putting in a food plot is, you know, we're going to start planting in late April through May. Some folks will put them in June. We want to extend the maturity of that plant. A soybean plant's an annual plant. It has one real main goal is to get up, produce seed, and then die off. The issue is when we get later maturing, those plants, they start to yellow, the leaves start yellow, we lose digestibility of that plant, and they're not as palatable, they're not as preferable to our deer. When we get into the hunting season, we can see some of those earlier grouping beans start to fade, whereas you get to a later grouping, like a group 8 Record Buck Beans, they're still green out there in that field, they're still palatable, the deer are still interested in browsing that plant. So with inoculation in a food plot scenario, if you've had legumes in that food plot. Say you have a dedicated area, you put a food plot every year and it's had legume species in there. You could probably get away without inoculating that legume. But the benefit there is it's really a kickstarter to get those rhizobium, the bacteria that's in the soil, that actually fixate that nitrogen with the plant. I would definitely recommend using an inoculant if it's new ground that has never seen soybeans or any type of legume. That's just insurance. It's an added benefit. If you've made it to the steps of preparing that ground, you've bought the seed, and inoculant is the only thing left to do, I would say let's throw in some inoculant. The nice thing about record buck beans, they come pre-inoculated, so you don't have to worry about that step. But overall, new ground, we need to focus on having inoculates. But if you've had soybeans in the past, it's not that big a deal on that piece of ground. So another benefit that we have with the record buck beans is this technology is built into that soybean plant. So what that means is you can make a glyphosate application over the top, a broadcast application over the top of those soybeans, and control a lot of the weed pressure that we don't want. We've spent a lot of money on that plant, spent a lot of time getting it into the ground. The last thing we need is weed competition coming up to take some of those nutrients away from that plant we want the animal to eat. So the nice benefit of that technology is we can make a glyphosate application over the top 2 times in a season, clean those fields up, really let the soybeans get established.